The Chevrolet Corvette is a sports car by the Chevrolet division of General Motors that has been produced in 7 generations. The first model, a convertible, was designed by Harley Earl and introduced at the GM Motorama in 1953 as a concept show car. Myron Scott is credited for naming the car after the type of small, maneuverable warship called a Corvette. Originally built in Flint, Michigan and St. Louis, Missouri, the Corvette is currently manufactured in Bowling Green, Kentucky and is the official sports car of the Commonwealth of Kentucky. A Corvette has been used as the Indianapolis 500 pace car 12 times. History: First generation C1. The first-generation Corvette was introduced late in the 1953 model year. Originally designed as a show car for the 1953 Motorama display at the New York Auto Show, it generated enough interest to induce GM to make a production version to sell to the public. To keep costs down, GM executive Robert F. McLean mandated off-the-shelf mechanical components, and used the chassis and suspension from the 1952 Chevy sedan. The drivetrain and passenger compartment were moved rearward to achieve a 53/47 front-to-rear weight distribution. It had a 102-inch wheelbase. The engine was the same inline-six that powered all other Chevrolet models, but with a higher compression ratio, 3 Carter side draft carburetors, and a more aggressive cam. Output was 150 horsepower. Because there was currently no manual transmission available to Chevrolet rated to handle 150 horsepower, a 2-speed power guide automatic was used. 0-60 mph time was 11.5 seconds. To keep tooling costs in line, the body was made out of fiberglass instead of steel. First production was on June 30, 1953. This generation was often referred to as the solid axle models. 300 hand-built Polo White Corvette convertibles were produced for the 1953 model year. The 1954 model year arrived quickly. It could now be ordered in pennant blue, sportsman red and black, or polo white. 3,640 were built, and sold slowly. The 1955 model offered a 265 Equine V8 engine as an option. With a large inventory of unsold 1954 models, GM limited production to 700 for 1955. With the V8, 0-60 mph time improved to 8.5 seconds. A new body was introduced for the 1956 model featuring a new face, and side coves. The tail and fins were also gone. An optional fuel injection system was made available in the middle of the 1957 model year. It was one of the first mass-produced engines in history to reach 1 bhp per cubic inch, and Chevrolet's advertising agency used a 1 HP per cubic inch slogan for advertising the 283 bhp 283 Equine small block engine. Other options included power windows, hydraulically operated power convertible top, heavy-duty brakes and suspension, and 4-speed manual transmission. Delco radio transistorized signal-seeking car radio, which used both vacuum tubes and transistors in its radio circuitry. The 1958 Corvette received a body and interior freshening which included a longer front end with quad headlamps, bumper exiting exhaust tips, a new steering wheel, and a dashboard with all gauges mounted directly in front of the driver. Exclusive to the 1958 model were hood louvers and twin trunk spears. The 1959 Euro 60 model years had few changes except a decreased amount of body chrome and more powerful engine offerings. In 1961, the rear of the car was completely redesigned with the addition of a ducktail with 4 round lights. The light treatment would continue for all following model year Corvettes until 2014. In 1962, the Chevrolet 283 Equine small block was enlarged to 327 Equine. In standard form it produced 250 bhp. For an extra 12% over list price, the fuel-injected version produced 360 bhp, making it the fastest of the C1 generation. 1962 was also the last year for the wraparound windshield, solid rear axle, and convertible-only body style. The trunk lid and exposed headlamps did not reappear for many decades. Second generation C2. The second generation Corvette, which introduced Stingray to the model, continued with fiberglass body panels, and overall, was smaller than the first generation. The C2 was later referred to as mid-years. The car was designed by Larry Shinoda with major inspiration from a previous concept design called the Q Corvette, which was created by Peter Brock and Chuck Pullman under the styling direction of Bill Mitchell. Earlier, Mitchell had sponsored a car known as the Mitchell Stingray in 1959 because Chevrolet no longer participated in factory racing. This vehicle had the largest impact on the styling of this generation, although it had no top and did not give away what the final version of the C2 would look like. The third inspiration was a Mako shark Mitchell had caught while deep-sea fishing. Production started for the 1963 model year and ended in 1967. Introducing a new name, Stingray, the 1963 model was the first year for a Corvette Coupe copyright and it featured a distinctive tapering rear deck with, for 1963 only, a split rear window. The Stingray featured hidden headlamps, non-functional hood vents, and an independent rear suspension. Corvette chief engineer Zora Arkus Duntov never liked the split rear window because it blocked rear vision, but Mitchell thought it to be a key part of the entire design. Maximum power for 1963 was 360 bhp and was raised to 375 bhp in 1964. Options included electronic ignition, the brakeless magnetic pulse trigger Delcatronic first offered on some 1963 Pontiac models. Ontario, 1964 models. The decorative hood vents were eliminated and Duntov, the Corvette's chief engineer, got his way with the split rear window changed to a full-width window. Four-wheel disc brakes were introduced in 1965, as was a big block engine option, the 396 Acclaim V8. Side exhaust pipes were also optionally available in 1965, and continued to be offered through 1967. The introduction of the 425 bhp 396 Acclaim big block in 1965 spelled the beginning of the end for the Rochester fuel injection system. The 396 Acclaim option cost $292.70 while the fuel-injected 327 Acclaim engine cost $538. Few people could justify spending $245 more for 50 bhp less, even though FI could deliver over 20 mpg on the highway and would keep delivering fuel despite high G loading in corners taken at racing speeds. Another rare 63 and 64 option was the Z06 competition package, which offered stiffer suspension, bigger, multi-segment line brakes with fin drums and more. Only a couple hundred coupes and one convertible were factory-equipped this way in 1963. With only 771 fuel-injected cars built in 1965, Chevrolet discontinued the option at the end of the 65 production, having introduced a less expensive big block 396 engine rated at 425 bhp in the middle of the production year and selling over 2,000 in just a few months. For 1966, Chevrolet introduced an even larger 427 Acclaim big block version. Other options available on the C2 included the Wonderbar auto-tuning AM radio, AM/FM radio, air conditioning, a telescopic steering wheel, and headrests. The Stingray's independent rear suspension was successfully adapted for the new 1965 Chevrolet Corvette, which solved the quirky handling problems of that unique rear-engine compact. 1967 was the final year for the C2 generation. The 1967 model featured restyled fender vents, less ornamentation, and backup lamps which were now rectangular and centrally located. The first use of all four taillights in red also occurred in the 1967 model. This all-four red taillight treatment continued on the first C3 in 1968 only and later returned on the first C4 in 1984, continuing on all Corvettes since. 1967 had the first L88 engine option which was rated at 430 bhp, but unofficial estimates placed the actual output at 560 bhp or more. Only 20 such engines were installed at the factory. From 1967, the Holley triple two-barrel carburetor, or tri-power, was available on the 427L89. Despite these changes, sales slipped over 15%, to 22,940. Duntov came up with a lightweight version of the C2 in 1962. Concerned about Ford and what they were doing with the Shelby Cobra, GM planned to manufacture 100 Grand Sport Corvettes, but only 5 were actually built. They were driven by historic drivers such as Roger Penske, A.J. Foyt, Jim Hall, and Dick Guldstrand among others. Today the 5 cars are all held by private owners, and are among the most coveted and valuable Corvettes ever built. Third generation C3. The third-generation Corvette, patterned after the Marco Shark II concept car, was introduced for the 1968 model year and was in production until 1982. C3 coupes featured the first use of T-top removable roof panels. It introduced monikers that were later revived, such as LT1, ZR1, and Collector Edition. In 1978, the Corvette's 25th anniversary was celebrated with a two-tone silver anniversary edition and an Indy Pace Car replica edition of the C3. This was also the first time that a Corvette was used as a pace car for the Indianapolis 500. Engines and chassis components were mostly carried over from the C2, but the body and interior were new. The 350 Acclaim engine replaced the old 327 Acclaim as the base engine in 1969, but power remained at 300 bhp. 1969 was the only year for a C3 to optionally offer either a factory-installed side exhaust or normal rear exit with chrome tips. The all-aluminum ZL1 engine was also new for 1969. The special big block engine was listed at 430 horsepower, but was reported to produce 560 HP and propelled a ZL1 through the 1/4 mile in 10.89 seconds. There was an extended production run for the 1969 model year due a lengthy labor strike, which meant sales were down on the 1970 models, to 17,316. 1970 small block power peaked with the optional high compression, high revving LT1 that produced 370 bhp. The 427 big block was enlarged to 454 Acclaim with a 390 bhp rating. The ZR1 special package was an option available on the 1970 through 1972 model years, and included the LT1 engine combined with special racing equipment. Only 53 ZR1s were built. In 1971, to accommodate regular low-lead fuel with lower anti-knock properties, the engine compression ratios were lowered, which resulted in reduced power ratings. The power rating for the 350 Acclaim L48 base engine decreased from 300 to 270 horsepower, and the optional special high-performance LT1 engine decreased from 370 to 330 horsepower. The big block LS6 454 was reduced from 450 to 425 bhp, though it was not used in Corvettes for 1970. It was used in the Chevrolet SS. For the 1972 model year, GM moved to the SAE net measurement, which resulted in further reduced, but more realistic, power ratings than the previous SAE gross standard. Although the 1972 model's 350 Acclaim horsepower was actually the same as that for the 1971 model year, the lower net horsepower numbers were used instead of gross horsepower. The L48 base engine was now rated at 200 bhp and the optional LT1 engine was now rated at 270 bhp. 1974 models had the last true dual exhaust system that was dropped on the 1975 models with the introduction of catalytic converters requiring the use of no lead fuel. Engine power decreased with the base ZQ3 engine producing 165 bhp, the optional L82's output 205 bhp, while the 454 big block engine was discontinued. Gradual power increases after 1975 peaked with the 1980 model's optional L82 producing 230 bhp. Styling changed subtly throughout the generation until 1978 for the car's 25th anniversary. The Stingray nameplate was not used on the 1968 model, but Chevrolet still referred to the Corvette as a Stingray. However, the 1969 models used the Stingray name as one word, without the space. In 1970, the body design was updated including fender flares, and interiors were refined, which included redesigned seats, and indication lights near the gear shift that were an early use of fiber optics. Due to government regulation, the 1973 Corvette's chrome front bumper was changed to a 5 mph system with a urethane bumper cover. 1973 Corvettes are unique in that sense, as they are the only year where the front bumper was polyurethane and the rear retained the chrome two-piece bumper set. 1973 was also the last year chrome bumpers were used. The optional wire-spoked wheel covers were offered for the last time in 1973. From 1974 onwards both the front and rear bumpers were polyurethane. In 1974, a 5 mph rear bumper system with a two-piece, tapering urethane bumper cover replaced the camtail and chrome bumper blades, and matched the new front design from the previous year. 1975 was the last year for the convertible, and Dave McClellan succeeded Zora Arkus Duntov as the Corvette's chief engineer. For the 1976 models the fiberglass floor was replaced with steel panels to provide protection from the catalytic converter's high operating temperature. Stingray 15 model years where the names Corvette, Stingray, and Stingray were synonymous. 1977 was last year the tunnel roof treatment with vertical back window was used, in addition leather seats were available at no additional cost for the first time. The black exterior color returned after a 6-year absence. The 1978 25th anniversary model introduced the fastback glass rear window and featured a new interior and dashboard. Corvette's 25th anniversary was celebrated with the Indy 500 Pace Car Limited Edition and a silver anniversary model featuring silver over gray lower body paint. All 1979 models featured the previous year's pace car seats and offered the front and rear spoilers as optional equipment. 53,807 were produced for the model year, making 1979 the peak production year for all versions of the Corvette. Sales have trended downward since then. In 1980, the Corvette received an integrated aerodynamic redesign that resulted in a significant reduction in drag. After several years of weight increases, 1980 Corvettes were lighter as engineers trimmed both body and chassis weight. In mid-1981, production shifted from St. Louis, Missouri to Bowling Green, Kentucky, and several two-tone paint options were offered. The 1981 models were the last available with a manual transmission until well into the 1984 production run. In 1982, a fuel-injected engine returned, and a final C3 Tribute Collector's Edition featured an exclusive, opening rear window hatch. 4th Generation C4. The 4th Generation Corvette was the first complete redesign of the Corvette since 1963. Production was to begin for the 1983 model year but quality issues and part delays resulted in only 43 prototypes for the 1983 model year being produced that were never sold. All of the 1983 prototypes were destroyed or serialized to 1984 except one with a white exterior, medium blue interior, L83 350Si, 205 bhp V8, and 4-speed automatic transmission. After extensive testing and modifications were completed, it was initially retired as a display sitting in an external wall over the Bowling Green assembly plant's employee entrance. Later this only surviving 1983 prototype was removed, restored and is now on public display at the National Corvette Museum in Bowling Green, Kentucky. It is still owned by GM. On February 12, 2014, it was nearly lost to a sinkhole which opened up under the museum. 8 Corvettes were lost. Regular 4th generation production began on January 3, 1983. The 1984 model year and delivery to customers began in March 1983. The 1984 model carried over the 350 Acclaim L83 slightly more powerful Crossfire V8 engine from the final 1982 third-generation model. New chassis features were aluminum brake calipers and an all-aluminum suspension for weight savings and rigidity. The new one-piece Targa top had no center reinforcement. A new electronic dashboard with digital liquid crystal displays for the speedometer and tachometer was standard. Beginning in 1985, The 230 bhp L98 engine with tuned port fuel injection became the standard engine. September 1984 through 1988 Corvettes offered a Doug Nash-designed 4+3 transmission, a 4-speed manual coupled to an automatic overdrive on the top three gears. It was designed to help the Corvette meet U.S. fuel economy standards. Since 1981, a manual transmission returned to the Corvette, starting with production in late 1984. The transmission proved to be problematic and was replaced by a modern ZF 6-speed manual gearbox in 1989. In 1986, the second Corvette Indy Pace car was released. It was the first convertible Corvette since 1975. A center-high mounted signal light, a third center brake light, was added in 1986 to comply with safety regulations. While the color of the pace car used in the race was yellow, all 1986 convertibles also had an Indy 500 emblem mounted on the console, making any color a pace car edition. In 1987, the B2K twin-turbo option became available from the factory. The colorway Corvette was a regular production option. The B2K option coexisted from 1990 to 1991 with the ZR1 option, which then replaced it. Early B2Ks produced 345 bhp and 450 lb-aft. Later versions boasted 450 bhp and 613 lb-aft. 1988 saw the 35th anniversary edition of the Corvette. Each of these featured a special badge with an identification number mounted next to the gear selector, and were finished with a white exterior, wheels, and interior. In 1991, all Corvettes received updates to the body, interior, and wheels. The convex rear fascia that set the 1990 ZR1 apart from the base model was now included on L98 Corvettes, making the styling of the expensive ZR1 even closer to that of the base cars. The most obvious difference remaining between the base and ZR1 models besides the wider rear wheels was the location of the CHMSL, which was integrated into the new rear fascia used on the base model, but remained at the top of the rear hatch on the ZR1s. For the 1992 model year, the 300 bhp LT1 engine was introduced, an increase of 50 bhp over 1991's L98 engine. This engine featured reverse flow cooling, which allowed for a higher compression ratio of 10.5 to 1. A new distributor was also debuted. Called OptiSpark, the distributor was driven directly off the front of the camshaft and mounted in front of the timing cover, just above the crankshaft and harmonic balancer. Also new for 1992 was acceleration slip regulation, a form of traction control which utilized the Corvette's brakes, spark retard, and throttle close down to prevent excessive rear wheel spin and possible loss of control. The traction control device could be switched off if desired. A special 40th anniversary edition was released in 1993, which featured a commemorative ruby red color, 40th anniversary badges, and embroidered seat backs. The 1993 Corvette also marked the introduction of the passive keyless entry system, making it the first GM car to feature it. Production of the ZR1 ended in 1995, after 6,939 cars had been built. 1996 was the final year of C4 production, and featured special models and options, including the Grand Sport and Collector Edition, OBD2, run-flat tires, and the LT4 engine. The 330 bhp LT4 V8 was available only with a manual transmission, while all 300 bhp LT1 Corvettes used automatic transmissions. Chevrolet released the Grand Sport version in 1996 to mark the end of production of the C4 Corvette. The Grand Sport moniker was a nod to the original Grand Sport model produced in 1963. A total of 1,000 GS Corvettes were produced, 810 as coupes and 190 as convertibles. The 1996 GS came with the high-performance LT4 V8 engine, producing 330 bhp and 340 lb-aft. The Grand Sport came only in Admiral Blue with a white stripe down the middle, and black wheels and two red stripes on the front left wheel arch. 5th generation C5. Production of the C5 Corvette began in 1997 and ended with the 2004 model year. Chevrolet used cars like the Nissan 300ZX and Mazda RX-7 as benchmarks for quality and styling due to criticisms the C4 Corvette received when compared to Japanese rivals. The C5 had a top speed of 181 mph and was judged by the automotive press as improved in nearly every area over the previous Corvette design, thanks to the car's much increased structural rigidity and much more curvaceous design. Also introduced with the C5 was GM's new LS1 small block. This third-generation small block V8 was completely redesigned. Now all aluminum, it featured a distributor-less ignition and a new cylinder firing order. It was initially rated at 345 bhp and 350 lb-ft, but was increased to 350 bhp in the 2001 edition. The new engine, combined with a new body and its low 0.29 drag coefficient, was able to achieve up to 28 mpg on the highway. For its first year, the C5 was available only as a coupe, although the new platform was designed from the ground up to be a convertible, which returned in 1998, followed by the fixed-roof coupe in 1999. One concept for the FRC was for it to be a stripped-down model with a possible V6 engine. By 2000, FRC plans laid the groundwork for the return in 2001 of the Z06, an IPO option not seen since Aura's 1963 race-ready Corvette. The Z06 model replaced the FRC model as the highest-performance C5 Corvette. Instead of a heavier double-overhead cam engine like the ZR1 of the C4 generation, the Z06 used an LS6, a 385 bhp derivative of the standard LS1 engine. Using the much more rigid fixed-roof design allowed the Z06 unprecedented handling thanks to upgraded brakes and less body flex. Those characteristics, along with the use of materials such as a titanium exhaust system and a carbon fiber hood in the 2004 model year, led to further weight savings and performance gains for the C5 Z06. The LS6 was later upgraded to 405 bhp FOR 2002 Euro 2004. Although the Z2006's rated power outputs equal to that of the C4 ZR1, the improved rigidity, suspension, brakes, and reduced weight of the C5 produced a car quicker than C4 ZR1. 6th generation C6. The C6 Corvette retained the front engine and rear transmission design of the C5, but was otherwise all new, including new bodywork with exposed headlamps, a larger passenger compartment, a new 6.0-liter engine and a reworked suspension geometry. It had a longer wheelbase than the C5, but its overall vehicle length and width were less than the C5, allegedly to widen appeal to the European market. The 6.0L LS2 V8 produced 400 bhp at 6,000 rpm and 400 lb-ft at 4,400 rpm, giving the vehicle a 0–60 time of under 4.2 seconds. Its top speed was 190 mph. The C6 generation did not match the previous generation's relatively good fuel economy, despite its relatively low 0.28 drag coefficient and low curb weight, achieving 16–26 mpg equipped with automatic or manual transmissions. Like all manual transmission Corvettes since 1989, it is fitted with computer-aided gear selection to improve fuel economy by requiring drivers to shift from first gear directly to fourth in low-speed low-throttle conditions. This feature helps the C6 avoid the gas guzzle attacks by achieving better fuel economy. The new Z06 arrived as a 2006 model in the third quarter of 2005. It has a 7.0L version of the small block engine codenamed LS7. At 427.6 cubic inches, the Z06 was the largest small block ever offered from General Motors. Because of the Corvette's former use of 427 cubic inch big blocks in the late 1960s and early 1970s, the LS7's size was rounded down to 427 cubic inches. Official output was 505 bhp and has a 0–60 mph time of 3.7 seconds with no increase in top speed. For 2008, the Corvette received a mild freshening, A new LS3 engine with displacement increased to 6.2 L, resulting in 430 bhp and 424 lb-ft and 428 lb-ft afforded with the optional performance exhaust. The 6-speed manual transmission also has improved shift linkage and a 0–60 time of 4.0 seconds, while the automatic is set up for quicker shifts, giving the C6 automatic a 0–60 time of 4.0 seconds, faster than any other production automatic Corvette. The interior was slightly updated and a new 4LT leather-wrap interior package was added. The wheels were also updated to a new 5-spoke design. ZR1 was formally announced in a December 2007 press statement by General Motors, where it was revealed that their target of 100 bhp per 1L had been reached by a new LS9 engine with an Eaton supercharged 6.2-litre engine producing 638 bhp and 604 lb-ft. The LS9 engine was the most powerful to be put into a Grand production sports car. Its top speed was 205 mph. The historical name Grand Sport returned to the Corvette lineup in 2010 as an entirely new model series that replaced the Z51 option. The new model was basically an LS3-equipped Z06 with a steel frame instead of aluminum. It retained many of the features of the Z06, including a wide body with 18x 9.5 and 19x 12-inch wheels, dry sump oiling, 6-piston 14 inches front brakes and 4-piston rear, improved suspension, and front carbon fiber fenders. Manual powertrain-equipped GS models receive a tweaked LS3 with a forged crank, are built in Z06 fashion by hand, and utilize a dry sump oil system. A new launch control system was introduced for all models that allows for sub-4-second 0–60. EPA estimated 26 mpg highway, 1.0 g on skid pad. Beginning with the 2011 model year, buyers of the Corvette Z06 and ZR1 were offered the opportunity to assist in the build of their engine. Titled the Corvette Engine Build Experience, buyers paid extra to be flown to the Exxon, Michigan Performance Build Center. Participants helped the assembly line workers build the V8 engine, then took delivery of the car at the National Corvette Museum in Bowling Green, Kentucky, near the Corvette final assembly point. The last C6 Corvette was manufactured in February 2013. In May 2013, a federal investigation of problems with more than 100,000 C6 lighting systems was announced. 7th generation C7. The next generation Corvette had been in development since 2007. Originally set to be introduced for the 2011 model year, its introduction was delayed for 3 years. It was finally released for the 2014 model year. Mid-engine and rear-engine layouts had been considered, but the front-engine, rear-wheel drive platform was chosen to keep production costs lower. To GM's product planners and marketers, the fact that the Corvette had become known as an old man's toy became a prime factor in developing the next generation. Studies showed that about 46% of Corvette buyers in 2012, through October, were 55 or older, compared with 22% of Audi R8 and 30% of Porsche 911 customers. The head of Chevy marketing, Chris Perry, acknowledges that too many people saw it as the car of the successful plumber. John Fitzpatrick, Corvette's marketing manager, said it's the old saying, nobody wants to be seen driving an old man's car, but everybody wants to be seen driving a young man's car. To counter the perception, GM planned to make the new generation C7 more aspirational to younger people. Towards that end, a camouflaged version of the car was made available in the popular video game Gran Turismo 5 in November 2012. As part of the marketing effort associated with the introduction of the new generation, the 2013 Indianapolis 500 utilized a Corvette for the 12th time as its pace car. Pace car additions are planned. Sales success of the new Corvette is important to GM. The Motley Fool reports that the Corvette could be earning GM $10,000 or more in gross profit for every Corvette it sells. GM's profit on sales is separate from the profits made by the individual dealership selling the cars to the public. The 2014 Chevrolet Corvette uses an LT1 6.2L V8 making 455 bhp or 460 bhp with the optional performance exhaust. The LT1 engine is in the Gen 5 family of small block engines, which will be used in GM vehicles as the new small V8 option. It features three technologies new to the GM V8, though widely available on other engines in the marketplace: direct injection, variable valve timing, and an active fuel management system. Fuel injectors are located under the intake manifold. The Corvette remains rear-wheel drive with the transaxle located in the rear. Transmission choices include a 7-speed manual or a 6-speed automatic with paddle shifters. The new interior includes wide bottom seats as standard, with sportier versions with high side bolsters optional. The Corvette's flag logo has been revised for the new car and a small casting of a stingray has been added to the car's ornamentation. Features of the new generation structure include a carbon fiber hood and removable roof panel. The fenders, doors and rear quarter panels remain composite. At the rear of the car, the trademark, round tail lights have changed to a more squarish form. The underbody panels are made of carbon nano-composite and it makes use of a new aluminum frame which locates the four wheels an inch farther apart, front to rear and side to side. Luggage space decreased by 33% from the previous generations. The overall weight of the car was not announced by General Motors for many months after its first showing in January 2013. Despite the increased use of aluminum and other lightweight materials, numerous publications reported that the weight would remain essentially unchanged from that of the previous generations. In August 2013, the weight of the new Corvette was reported to be 3,444 lb, meaning it would weigh more than the previous generation C6 ZR1 model. The ZR1 C6 weight included a supercharger and intercooler on its 6.2L engine. Chevrolet announced the C7 Z06 at the 2014 Detroit Auto Show. The 2015 Z06 Corvette is expected to have at least 625 bhp and a supercharged LT4 aluminum 6.2L V8 engine. The new generation Corvette resurrected the Stingray name, last used in 1976. Awards. Over the years, the Corvette has won awards from automobile publications as well as organizations such as the Society of Automotive Engineers. Automobile magazine ranked the 1963–1967 Stingray first on their 100 coolest cars list, above the Dodge Viper GTS, the Porsche 911, and others. In 2013, Automobile magazine had selected the Corvette C7 as its Automobile of the Year. Sports Car International placed the Corvette at number 5 on their list of the top sports cars of the 1960s. Hot Rod magazine in its March 1986 issue selected the 1973 Euro 74 Corvette LS6 454 as one of the 10 most collectible muscle cars in the company of the 1968 Euro 70 Chevrolet, 1970 Cuda, 1970 Challenger, 1966 Euro 67 Felon, 1968 Euro 70 AMX, 1970 Camaro Z28, 1968 Euro 70 GTO, 1968 Euro 69 Charger, and 1967 Euro 68 Mustang. Car and Driver readers selected the Corvette Best All-Around Car 9 out of 11 years in Car and Driver's Readers' Choice polls including 1971, 1972, 1973, 1974, and 1975. Car and Driver magazine selected the Corvette for its annual 10 Best list 16 times, the C4 from 1985 through 1989, the C5 in 1998, 1999, and 2002 through 2004, the C6 from 2005 through 2009, and the C7 in 2014. Motor Trend magazine named the Corvette Car of the Year in 1984 and 1998. Society of Automotive Engineers publication Automotive Engineering International selected the 1999 Corvette Convertible, Best Engineered Car of the 20th Century. The 2005 Corvette was nominated for the North American Car of the Year award and was named Most Coveted Vehicle in the 2006 Canadian Car of the Year contest. U.S. News & World Report selected the 2010 Corvette the best luxury sports car for the money. Edmunds.com, in its 100 best cars of all time list, ranked the 1963 Corvette Stingray as the 16th best car ever produced worldwide. The 1990 ZR1 took number 50, the 1955 Corvette V8 took number 72, and the 2009 ZR1 took number 78 overall. The 2014 Corvette was nominated for the North American Car of the Year award, and won it from its great performance. NASA. Astronaut Alan Shepard, a longtime Corvette owner, was invited by then GM chief engineer Zora Arkus Duntov to drive pre-production Corvette models. General Motors executives later gave Shepard a 1972 model with a Bill Mitchell interior. Jim Rathman, a Melbourne, Florida Chevrolet dealer and winner of the 1960 Indy 500, befriended astronaut Shepard, Gus Grissom, and Gordon Cooper. Rathman convinced GM President Ted Cole to set up a program which supplied each astronaut with a pair of new cars each year. Most chose a family car for their wives and a Corvette for themselves. In his memoir Last Man on the Moon, Gene Cernan describes how this worked. The astronauts received brand new Corvettes which they were given the option to purchase at a used price after they'd been driven 3,000 miles. Alan Bean recalls Corvettes lined up in the parking lot outside the astronaut offices at the Johnson Space Center in Houston, and friendly races between Shepard and Grissom along the Florida beach roads and beaches themselves as local police turned a blind eye. Shepard, Grissom and Cooper even pulled each other on skis in the shallow water. The Mercury and later astronauts were unofficially tied to the Corvette and appeared in official photographs with their cars and with mock-ups of space vehicles such as the Lunar Module or Lunar Rover. Cooper talked of the races along Cocoa Beach in his eulogy of Shepard at the Johnson Space Center in 1998. Concept cars. Corvette concept cars have inspired the designs of several generations of Corvettes. The first Corvette, Harley Earl's 1953 X122 Corvette prototype, was itself a concept show car, first shown to the public at the 1953 GM Motorama at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel in New York City on January 17, 1953. It was brought to production in 6 months with only minor changes. Harley Earl's successor, Bill Mitchell, was the man behind most of the Corvette concepts of the 1960s and 1970s. The second generation of 1963 was his, and its design first appeared on the Stingray Racer of 1959. It made its public debut at Maryland's Marlboro Raceway on April 18, 1959, powered by a 283 Acclaim V8 with experimental 11-1 compression aluminum cylinder heads, and took 4th place. It raced through 1960 wearing only Stingray badges before retiring to tour the auto show circuit in 1961. In 1961 the XP755 Mako Shark show car was designed by Larry Shinoda as a concept for future Corvettes. In keeping with the name, the streamlining, pointed snout, and other detailing was partly inspired by the look of that very fast fish. The 1961 Corvette tail was given 2 additional tail lights for the concept car. The body inspired the 1963 production Stingray. In 1965 Mitchell removed the original concept body and redesigned it as the Mako Shark II. Chevrolet actually created 2 of them, only one of which was fully functional. The original Mako Shark was then retroactively called the Mako Shark I. The Mako Shark II debuted in 1965 as a show car, and this concept influenced Mitchell's redesigned Corvette of 1968. The Aerovette has a mid-engine configuration using a transverse mounting of its V8 engine. Zora Arkus Duntov's engineers originally built 2 XP882s during 1969. John DeLorean, Chevy general manager, ordered one for display at the 1970 New York Auto Show. In 1972, DeLorean authorized further work on the XP882. A near-identical body in aluminum alloy was constructed and became the XP895 Reynolds aluminum car. Duntov and Mitchell responded with 2 Chevrolet Vega Wankel 2-rotor engines joined together as a 4-rotor 420 HP engine which was used to power the XP895. It was first shown in late 1973. The four-rotor show car was outfitted with a 400 Acclaim small block V8 in 1977 and rechristened Aerovette. GM chairman Thomas Murphy approved the Aerovette for 1980 production, but Mitchell's retirement that year, combined with then Corvette chief engineer Dave McClellan's lack of enthusiasm for the mid-engine design and slow selling data on mid-engined cars, killed the last hope for a mid-engine Vette. A Corvette Stingray anniversary concept car was unveiled at the 2009 Detroit Auto Show, 50 years after the Stingray Racer concept of 1959. The vehicle was based on a combination of the 1963 Stingray and the 1968 Stingray. The new Stingray concept appears in the 2009 movie Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen, as the vehicle mode of the character Sideswipe. A convertible speedster version was used for the same character in the 2011 sequel, Transformers: Dark of the Moon. Production statistics from 1953, when the first generation of Corvettes were released, until present. Owner demographics, according to research by Specialty Equipment Market Association and Experian Automotive, as of 2009, there were approximately 750,000 Corvettes of all model years registered in the United States. Corvette owners were fairly equally distributed throughout the country, with the highest density in Michigan and the lowest density in Utah, Mississippi, and Hawaii. 47% of them hold college degrees, and 82% are between ages of 40 and 69. Racing. C5R. The Chevrolet Corvette C5R is a Grand Touring racing car built by Pratt & Miller and General Motors for competition in endurance racing. The car is based on the C5 generation of the Chevrolet Corvette sports car, yet is designed purely for motorsports use. It became one of the most dominant cars in GT categories, with wins at the 24 Hours of Daytona, 12 Hours of Sebring, and 24 Hours of Le Mans, as well as championships in the American Le Mans Series. The Corvette C5RS debuted in 1999 and continues to be raced to this day, although the C5R has effectively been replaced by the Corvette C6R, C6R. C6R GT1 in 2005, the factory Corvette team began racing the C6R to coincide with the new 6th-generation Corvette being released to the public. Private teams, primarily in Europe, continued to race the C5R for a couple of years before switching to C6R. Corvette C6R went on to win its class at every race it entered in the 2005 ALMS season. By the end of 2009, Corvette had clinched 4 consecutive ALMS GT1 team and manufacturers titles and 3 Le Mans 24-hour class victories in the LM GT1 category. 2007 and 2008 races were won by the factory Aston Martin squad's DBR9. The last official race for factory GT1 Corvettes was the 2009 24 Hours of Le Mans. C6R GT2. While some privateers continued to use GT1 version of the C6R in Europe, the official factory team Corvette Racing switched from slowly dying GT1 category to much more competitive and popular GT2 class in mid-2009. The new GT2 C6R used a modified version of the ZR1 model body, but does not have the ZR1 supercharged engine. GT2 rules are based more on production vehicles, therefore the GT2 C6R naturally aspirated engine was considerably more restricted and less powerful than its predecessor. The car debuted at Mid-Ohio's ALMS round. They achieved 1 ALMS race victory in the remaining 2009 ALMS season, and 1 victory at the final round of 2010 ALMS season, Petit Le Mans. Corvette Racing's 2 GT2 C6RS also led most of the 2010 24 Hours of Le Mans, but both cars were forced to retire. Racing in the new GTE Pro class, the C6R raced in the 2011 24 Hours of Le Mans with the Noe 73 car taking the class victory. The Noe 74 car led the class for most of the race but crashed in the morning hours. The C6R raced by Labre competition also took the GTEM class victory. In 2012, Corvette Racing returned to glory in the ALMS, winning 4 of 10 races and claiming the driver a Euro 1 registered trademark S team, and manufacturer Euro unregistered trademark S championships. Corvette Racing repeated the feat in 2013 by winning 5 of 10 races and claiming the drivers, team and manufacturers championships again. C7R. In 2014, Corvette Racing introduced the new C7R to coincide with the launch of the 7th generation C7 Corvette. The car made its on-track debut at the 2013 Rolex Motorsports reunion and later participated in the 2014 Raw before the Rolex 24 to prepare for the 2014 United Sports Car Championship. The car's new livery will be debuted at the 2014 North American International Auto Show. Indianapolis 500 Pace Cars. A Corvette has been selected as the pace car at the Indianapolis 500, 11 times. The 2008 edition of the Indy 500 represented a record 5th consecutive year to lead the field until 2009 when the Chevrolet Camaro SS was selected. The Corvette's pace car years and details include, 1978 a Euro driven by 1960 race winner Jim Rathman. Chevrolet produced 6,502 production replicas. 1986 a Euro driven by famed pilot Chuck Yeager. All 7,315 production convertibles were considered pace car convertibles and included official graphics. 1995 a Euro driven by then Chevrolet general manager Jim Perkins. 527 production replicas produced. 1998 a Euro driven by 1963 race winner Parnelli Jones when an injury prevented golfer Greg Norman from performing the duty. 1,158 production replicas produced. 2002 a Euro driven by actor Jim Caviezel. No production replicas produced but graphics were available through SPO a Euro approximately 300 sets sold. 2004 a Euro driven by actor Morgan Freeman. No production replicas produced. 2005 a Euro driven by General Colin Powell. No production replicas produced. 2006 a Euro driven by cycling champion Lance Armstrong. First Corvette Z06 pace car. No production replicas produced. 2007 a Euro driven by actor Patrick Dempsey. 500 production replicas a Euro all convertibles. 2008 a Euro driven by Emerson Fittipaldi. 500 production replicas a Euro coupes and convertibles. 2012 a Euro driven by Guy Fieri. First Corvette C6ZR1 pace car. No production replicas produced. 2013 a Euro driven by Jim Harbaugh. First year of production for C7 generation. See also, Chevrolet Engineering Research Vehicle, Kaiser Darin, prototype in 1952, 435 built for 1954 model year, Nash Healey, 1951 a Euro 54, National Corvette Museum, references. External links, Chevrolet Corvette, Corvette Europe, The Corvette Story, Corvette GM Asia Pacific Japan, Corvette 0 to 60 times and 1/4 mile times, Chevrolet Corvette at DMOZ.